Welcome to Asian ID. What if the most powerful love story is not the one that begins with passion, but the one that survives in silence for years, waiting for the right moment to finally breathe? And when Shen Hae-in's Hae-in reunite once again in secret, love leads to marriage. Doesn't it feel like fate itself is insisting that some connections are simply too strong to end? The moment the release date was announced, the internet didn't just react, it erupted, as if audiences had been quietly waiting for something they couldn't quite name. Didn't they? Why else would a single poster spread like wildfire, turned into memes, shared across platforms, and discussed as though it carried hidden promises of heartbreak and healing? Is it really just another drama, or is it the continuation of an emotional thread that viewers have already woven into their own mindset against the cold stillness of a snowy night in Hae-in? The story begins not with love, but with loss. As Hae-in is abandoned by her first love and unexpectedly marries the man who has loved her for 11 years. Doesn't it? But how does one step into a marriage built not on mutual passion, but on a one-sided devotion that has silently endured time, distance, and rejection? And when that marriage unfolds into 4 long years of emotional distance, what the world sees as indifference, doesn't it force us to question what love truly looks like when stripped of its obvious forms? Because beneath that cold exterior lies a truth far more intense, doesn't it? Isn't Hae-in's silence not emptiness, but a carefully guarded storm, where every unspoken word carries the weight of years he chose not to burden her with? And how many times must he have stood at the edge of confession, only to retreat, choosing her happiness over his own longing? Isn't that the kind of love that feels both beautiful and bearably painful at the same time? When Shen Hae-in brings this character to life, with eyes that seem to hold entire conversations and tears that fracture rather than full, don't we feel something inside us quietly break as well? And when his cold demeanor is softened by the modest gestures, an almost invisible hesitation, a fleeting softness, doesn't it reveal more than any dramatic declaration ever could? Even his gold-rimmed glasses, reflecting both distance and hidden warmth, seem to become part of the story, don't they? Then there is Hae-in, whose portrayal of Hae-in transforms the narrative from a simple romance into a journey of awakening. Isn't it? How does she move so naturally from confusion to clarity, from resistance to acceptance? As if each emotional shift is not performed but lived in, when her expressions capture both stubbornness and vulnerability. Don't we begin to see ourselves reflected in her hesitation and growth? Isn't her evolution, from a woman uncertain about her marriage to someone who chooses love with conviction, the very heart of the story? In a market saturated with familiar tropes, contract marriages, dominant CEOs, predictable reversals, why does this story feel different? Could it be because it doesn't rush to impress, but instead takes its time, revealing the quiet layers of human ocean? And when the pacing remains tight, the emotions grounded, and the visuals beautifully restrained, doesn't it prove that sincerity can still stand out in a sea of repetition? But perhaps what truly resonates is not the story itself, but what it represents. Isn't it? How many people have loved silently, watching from the sidelines, never daring to step forward? And how many have lost that chance forever, left only with the echo of what could have been? When this drama dares to turn that silent longing into a fulfilled destiny, doesn't it feel like a second chance we never had? As Hae-in faces family pressure, rumors, and the return of her past, her growth becomes more than just a narrative arc, doesn't it? Isn't it a reminder that love is not just about being chosen, but about learning who is worth choosing in return? And as audiences gather once more, ready to relive the chemistry that has already proven unforgettable, doesn't it make us wonder what we are truly chasing? Are we here for the story, the actors, or the fragile hope that somewhere in our own lives, a love like this might still exist? Because in the end, when the snow melts, the silence breaks, and the truth finally stands exposed, there is only one question left that refuses to fade. If someone had loved you for 11 years without asking for anything in return, would you have the courage to love them back, or would you realize it only after they were gone forever? Thank you for watching the video. See you again.